Story 1. They still complain about their ex on a regular basis. A new relationship is more about proving something to themselves and their ex than about wanting to commit to a new person. Story 2. They struggle to take accountability for things in general. Story 3. Are you capable of disagreeing amiably? Can you take care of yourself 90% of the time? How are your conflict management skills? Imagine the best and worst roommates you have had. Think of marriage as a roommate you cannot simply toss aside the moment you stop liking each other. You are stuck in the same house with the same children, so you should largely like each other. Not everyone can genuinely do that. Story 4. If they make fun of you in front of their friends or work colleagues and demean you. Story 5. When one of them is controlling, overbearing, and possessive. Story 6. They are not patient with everyday life situations, such as when their partner needs to take care of a sick child or help a friend move. Story 7. Someone asked me yesterday if it was wrong to cheat on her boyfriend because another man offered to buy her a pair of shoes she really wanted. Apparently, her boyfriend did not buy them for her birthday, which had just passed. 12 hours later, she shared a post on Facebook saying that the partner she has now is the one she wants forever. She is a train wreck. I am not joking. Story 8. Using anxiety and insecurity as excuses instead of recognizing them as problems. Story 9. Be intentionally ambiguous and vague when mentioning the partner, so the partner's identity remains plausibly unknown. Verbally deny the relationship while behaving as if one exists. Be comfortable with this approach. Story 10. Arguing to be right or to win instead of trying to understand or be understood. Story 11. You always yell when you are angry. Yes, many people do that, but two things can be true at the same time. This shows you do not have conflict resolution skills, and you should develop them as an adult. People under 20 have a pass because they are still learning to regulate themselves. Story 12. When they are prone to intense, violent anger and choose to bottle it up instead of seeking therapy. Story 13. Today I learned that I should not be in a relationship. Story 14. When someone is not remotely okay with being single or alone for any amount of time, they need to pause, acknowledge their uncomfortable feelings, and work through them. People who avoid discomfort at all costs are not ready for an adult relationship. Story 15. If someone has addictions such as alcohol, pornography, or gambling, do not place that burden on someone else. Story 16. Cannot handle money, criticism, or being denied what they want. Story 17. They do not understand that relationships should be 60% to 40%, with each person trying to be the 60%. Story 18. When you are vulnerable and share how you feel, they tell you that they do not want to deal with your baggage. They project their insecurities onto you because you are open and honest, and they avoid the situation. Story 19. If when you need space they stop you from leaving or do not respect your boundaries, especially after you communicate that need. Story 20. They fall too quickly into new relationships. They often project their need for affection and care onto moments of intimacy and mistake that for passion and love. A person who lacks a healthy sense of self-worth can rob you of yours. Stay mindful. Story 21. If they are a narcissist, the trauma they put their partners through will require years of therapy and cause post-traumatic stress disorder. Story 22. When someone has a crush, they create a whole fantasy in their head. Then they act as if both are in love, even if it is their first conversation and the other person has not had a chance to get to know them. A major red flag appears when the other person is not interested in dating, but the fantasizer clings to their fantasy and ends up harassing them. The final stage is usually realization and bitterness. The fantasizer feels betrayed when the other person rejects contact, even though they never had a single date. Story 23. If they are looking for the other person to complete them. Story 24. Low self-esteem. No one will hate you more than someone who hates themselves. Story 25. They do not understand how a relationship works in the first place, and they consistently put others before their partner. Story 26. You have been seeing them for 2.5 months, and they tell you they cannot send more than one text per week. Story 27. Being jealous and thinking of themselves first all the time. Story 28. They cannot stand not being in a relationship and would rather be in a toxic relationship than be alone. Story 29. They need constant validation from their significant other. Do not tie your self-worth to another person. Work on your own insecurities before seeking a romantic relationship. Story 30. From my own experience of being overstressed all the time, I had a moment of clarity 2.5 years ago when I was in such a negative emotional state that I realized I would not want to date myself then. I deleted my dating apps and focused on stabilizing. Even though that lasted about 8 months, I did not feel ready to date again until a little over a year later. Story 31. People who see love as a solution rather than a partnership are mistaken. If you are hoping a relationship will fix your loneliness, heal your trauma, or give your life meaning, you are not looking for a partner. You are looking for a therapist, a parent, or a distraction. Love amplifies what is already there. If what is there is emptiness, the relationship becomes an echo chamber. Story 32. If they do not understand compromise or communication and are selfish and refuse to back down, it will end badly. Story 33. When they finally want to settle down because they are getting old. Story 34. One friend wants to dive into a relationship and get married within 2 years because she feels she is getting old at 26. She is furiously dating and having serial breakups. Entering relationships just for the sake of it seems like a bad idea. Story 35. Usually, if you are really craving a relationship, you probably should not be in one. Story 36. Getting angry easily, even over small things like being stuck in traffic. Story 37. If they do not have any real friends. I dated a woman who had a few friends she knew through work. She was a therapist. After a while, I realized she had no friends because anyone perceptive would see her many red flags. Her closest friend was a man she had treated for post-traumatic stress disorder. He was in love with her. She knew it but refused to acknowledge it because he would treat her like a girlfriend or a princess with no reciprocation. He would drive her around, take her shopping, and do other favors. Her second closest friend was the receptionist at their therapy office. That woman was constantly trying to help my ex see the truth of things, but her advice was usually ignored. She seemed mentally unstable and foolish. I do not understand how anyone could receive real, helpful treatment from her. Wild stuff. Story 38. Saying truly hurtful and disrespectful things just to win an argument. The best relationship I ever had was ruined because every time she got mad, she accused me of things I had never done or lashed out in a truly mean way. These included telling me I failed to make her feel safe after we ran into issues with our Airbnb during a vacation that were beyond my control. Accusing me of having sex with a female friend who was married and pregnant at the time, by the way, and telling me she could see why a past ex tried to get physically abusive toward me. After that last one, I was done. I tried to see if I could forgive her, but realized after a while that I did not want to. Story 39. Long-standing instability in employment. Okay, I know a lot of people will jump to the idea that this is a financial issue. Sure, that's the first layer, but instability in employment reveals a lot more. I have been extremely poor with no support system for a chunk of my life. I did not quit bad jobs because I had to eat. Eating took priority over how I felt, whether the work was meaningful, how much I liked my coworkers, and so on. I had a clear idea of my priorities. Food and shelter were greater than everything else. Instability of employment means any of the factors I listed were more important than eating. Maybe a family member can pay for you. You stop working and make that family member responsible for whether you eat or not. In short, you become dependent. There are also the skills needed to maintain employment. Showing up when you are supposed to, keeping commitments, receiving feedback from employers and addressing it, basic civility with people you may not like in the moment, negotiating schedules, and doing tasks you do not like. I value a partner who can accept feedback without rage quitting and who can maintain civility even when frustrated. I also value someone who understands they sometimes have to do undesirable tasks. Lastly, I know we are in a financial crisis with layoffs and so on. People who have been laid off usually do not have the kind of instability I am talking about. It is those who lose job after job or quit job after job for various reasons. Story 40. When someone obsesses over whether you will repeat the mistakes of others, that may be a trauma response. But if they are actively trying to make you stumble, there is a much bigger problem. Story 41. They are not happy with themselves. Just as having a child will not save a bad relationship, entering a relationship will not fix your mental health. Story 42. They do not know how to spend time alone. They would rather be with anyone than be alone. Story 43. I still have trouble with emotional regulation. I am 28 and have never been in a relationship. People ask me all the time when I am going to find a man. How about when I stop getting unreasonably angry at small things and stop falling into depressive episodes so often? I would hate to hurt someone else because of my issues. Story 44. Severe avoidant attachment means that instead of talking it out or trying to find a way to solve it, they just disappear and come back out of nowhere, thinking the issue is solved. Having some time and space to calm down is acceptable, but straight up ignoring someone, being online but not replying, is not very kind to the other partner, especially if it has been days or weeks. What era are we in now? Everyone keeps a phone with them. I personally do not think it is unreasonable to at least say good morning or good night, or I will reply once I am back home. Takes less than 2 minutes to say something. You can be using the bathroom or eating while doing so. Story 45. They think their personality or lifestyle will undergo a Cinderella-style transformation once they meet the one. They are holding back on trying new hobbies or vacation destinations until they are in a relationship. Story 46. I have a friend who starts a new relationship as soon as the previous one ends and then gets bored, repeating the cycle. Each time he says this is the one, but it never is. He is also the least happy person I have ever met. Story 47. They have never lived on their own and have not had to deal with living alone. Story 48. They react poorly to disappointment, such as when plans are canceled. While no one likes a last-minute cancellation, a couple of days' notice suggests they are more likely using the relationship to patch over existing unmet needs without being aware of it. This explains why they get overly invested too early or use the new relationship high to regulate their emotions. Story 49. If you spend every possible second worrying about what your significant other is doing, you are not ready. Story 50. If being alone makes you panic, that's usually a strong sign you're not ready for a relationship yet. A relationship should add to your peace, not be your peace. Story 51. When a person has significant, ongoing, untreated, or unmedicated mental health issues such as borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, or narcissistic personality disorder, it is not fair to place that burden on another person, and it will almost certainly destroy the relationship. Focus on improving your mental and emotional health before dating. Story 52. If you are older, not financially stable, and only somewhat independent. Story 53. They do not have their life together. Having your life together, independent with stable income, a place to live, food, and so on, bills paid, decent credit, self-control, self-ownership. You are a complete person willing to partner with another complete person. You are not filling a gap they have in themselves or letting them depend on you for basic things. You choose someone intending to be their partner, not because you are lonely. You listen and learn, you do not just talk. You have no interest in controlling or owning someone. You genuinely like them. Not having your life together. You are short on money all the time. You waste money on things you cannot afford or do not need. Your credit card is maxed or close to it, or you have several cards you will not catch up on. You have no job or unsteady income and no savings. You feel you deserve to be taken care of and guilt-trip people who say no. You lack self-control. You spend more time trying to escape than looking for work, settling debts, or finding peace of mind. You are insecure and seek someone to feel secure, not because you like them or can give back, but as an ego accessory. You have a negative attitude toward everything or are ambivalent about basic things like food, bills, and personal hygiene. You resent anyone who points this out or who withholds attention because of the above. Story 54. They find intimacy uncomfortable. I think of every avoidant who has told me they did not feel a strong connection or romantic chemistry once their nervous system could not handle the emotional intimacy we built. Story 55. They are not taking accountability for their actions, and they interpret everything as a personal attack. Story 56. They believe having a partner completes their lives and is the reason for their well-being. Your partner should complement your life and add to your happiness. No single person can be solely responsible for all of that. Story 57. They are unable to function independently as an adult without being told what to do. They have not moved on from their ex. They constantly complain about their partner to friends or family. They have untreated mental illness or refuse to seek help despite knowing they are unwell. Story 58. I had a friend who, when she was crushing on someone and getting together with him without really knowing him, began to ignore her boyfriend and complain all the time that he was too much. She kept looking for other men even though she was still in a relationship and started flirting with other men, including some of her exes. The worst part was seeing how all these men tried to fix the relationship, cried day and night, and were desperate, but she did not care. She thought it was not her problem. Story 59. They cannot accept critical feedback from someone who cares about them and wants the relationship to improve. Story 60. If they feel that they are being hunted by agencies, and it is true, they should probably lay low. There is nothing but traps. Story 61. If they struggle to connect with the people they are interested in, it is a sign they need to go back and reevaluate. Story 62. Trust issues. If you cannot handle your partner being friends with someone of another gender, you need to go to therapy. Story 63. I think that if they are financially struggling, they should first address that and then have a baby. Story 64. If I am emotionally drawn to a person, there are usually red flags that can be seen from orbit. Story 65. If your first thought about a person or situation is the worst-case scenario or the most betraying possibility, you are not in a good headspace to give or receive love. We always deserve love, but we might not be in a place to hold on to it. Story 66. Starting a new relationship shortly after a breakup does not mean you are ready for a relationship. It may mean you are afraid of being alone. Story 67. They had conflicts with a sizable portion of the people they met, and they always blamed the other person. Story 68. When they do not consider the character of the person they are with, they see the relationship only as a new opportunity rather than as a soul tie. They naturally get hurt when their personalities do not mix. Story 69. They feel they must be in a relationship to be happy. Story 70. When they only want a relationship because they are lonely and not because they actually want to build something real with that person. Story 71. They are still thinking selfishly, not considering another person's feelings or priorities, and not allowing space for those things to differ from their own. Story 72. Questions like these were about questioning myself, the relationship, communication, and accountability. Story 73. It is when a person's sense of self depends on constant validation from another. If you need someone to tell you you are enough, or to feel secure or happy, that is not really love. It is leaning on another to fill a gap only you can fill. Being ready does not mean being perfect, but it does mean being grounded in yourself. It means you can handle your own emotions, respect boundaries, and not expect a relationship to fix loneliness, boredom, or insecurity. Story 74. When someone cannot be alone without panicking, being single should not feel like a crisis. Story 75. They are seeking a relationship as a solution to feeling lonely. Story 76. Unable to compromise or see things from someone else's perspective. Story 77. They are determined to test their new partner, that is to punish them because their ex mistreated them. This comes up so often on Reddit that it is depressing. It is usually a recurring pattern, if not a shockingly toxic situation of legendary proportions. Story 78. Having to control your partner is unhealthy. If your partner is not allowed to have friends of the opposite sex, go to parties, or dress a certain way, you should leave the relationship because you are making both of you miserable. Consider therapy. Story 79. If you think you need a relationship, you do not. Story 80. They avoid conflict instead of dealing with it as a mature adult. They lie and do not communicate their needs. They hide behind text messages and email instead of having a conversation. Story 81. This applies if they were in a long-term committed relationship and it has been less than 1 year since their official split or since their divorce was finalized. I realize that some divorces can take a long time. While I have been burned by not ensuring the paperwork was finished, I know that is not everyone's experience. Story 82. I have a friend D who got out of a toxic relationship and, after a few weeks, started dating our mutual friend H. But every time we hang out, D gets angry for no reason because H is having a good time with our other friends while also including D in every conversation. Everyone can feel the shift in the atmosphere, and it makes us very uncomfortable. We have discussed it when they are not around and agree that D should not have started another relationship if she was not ready for a healthy one with H. We all work together, and even at work we can feel the tension because D cannot seem to separate her relationship problems from work. To be honest, we have already considered not inviting them to many of our hangouts because we always have to walk on eggshells around D. Story 83. If someone does not care about your feelings and cannot control their words. Story 84. If they have murdered someone or are an undiagnosed psychopath. Story 85. I struggle to control my emotions. I fear intimacy, abandonment, and rejection, and I am impatient. I am the problem. I am not in a relationship. Story 86. When they are unable to separate emotions from anything, at least when needed. Story 87. They do not stand up for themselves and accept mistreatment for things they do not deserve, while continuing to surround themselves with people who treat them poorly. Such people often end up in relationships that are chaotic and unstable rather than happy. Story 88. If they do not have sufficiently high self-esteem, any relationship they enter is likely to be unsatisfying because they do not value themselves enough to form a healthy one. Story 89. A major sign is when someone cannot find their own happiness or self-worth independently and expects a partner to fill that void completely. This creates an unhealthy dependency and immense pressure that no single person can realistically bear. Story 90. They think a relationship will solve their problems. Pro tip: relationships will present new problems to solve, and if you have not already solved your own, you are in for a bad time. Story 91. A problem I have is becoming intensely obsessed the moment a friendship shifts into a partnership, almost like an addiction just because the title changes. Story 92. If they cannot take accountability, they are not ready for any relationship. Story 93. They do not want a relationship. They want to feel special and have someone who dotes on them. Story 94. Seeking validation or feeding one's ego by entertaining other people invites problems and increases insecurity for both people involved. Story 95. They remain bitter about a past relationship, blame others for the bad things that happened to them, and make every conversation about themselves with no concern for anyone else. Story 96. Convincing yourself you cannot say no because it will hurt the other person's feelings. Story 97. I'd say having a messy room. If you can't put away your dirty clothes, how do you plan to keep a relationship? Story 98. You have a lot of debt. You live paycheck to paycheck and are barely making ends meet. Your car is a mess inside and out. You are extremely impulsive and refuse to do anything to improve. What do you think a relationship is going to do to help? Story 99. A person who has a history of cheating on past and current partners, who remains friends with an ex and sleeps over at the ex's house, who is still mourning the loss of a previous boyfriend, and who has attachment issues and is clingy. I knew someone who fit all of the above. Story 100. Today I learned that my sign apparently means I should not get into a relationship. When I noticed one thing I could relate to, I noticed several more. I have no idea when others will see me as ready for a relationship. Story 101. If you have any problem with your partner's sexual past, do not date them. They cannot undo what has been done, and eventually you will break up because dealing with someone who cannot accept the past is a waste of time. 9 times out of 10, the person with the problem has a smug, arrogant sense of moral superiority that makes things worse. Story 102.1. They treat a relationship as a goal in itself rather than a way to connect and share life with another person. 2. They cannot accept criticism and become defensive even about minor feedback. They view criticizing others as scoring points instead of helping them. 3. They see interactions as competitions for status, as zero-sum win or lose scenarios, or as matters of indebtedness rather than opportunities to build trust. Story 103. It often comes down to motivation. If someone wants a relationship simply because they do not want to be alone, that is a selfish reason that ignores their partner's agency. The same applies to people who marry because it is expected of them, whether by personal attitude or by culture. To be in a relationship, you must want it for unselfish reasons. If it is all about you, that is a clear sign you are not ready. Story 104. Low self-esteem. As RuPaul says, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else? Story 105. If you constantly complain to other people about your partner, venting is okay. But if your partner is awful all the time, realize you need to let go. Not being able to compromise or let small things go is a problem. Relationships require sacrifice. You will not want to go in the same direction as your partner 100% of the time. Story 106. When someone tells you their past relationships were all short-term, only a couple of months, and the longest lasted about 1 year, take note. I dated someone like that, and I was not an exception to the pattern. I found out quickly why all their relationships were short-term. Story 107. When people genuinely cannot manage their money, many say that spending in a relationship is expensive, and they are not exaggerating. It can be that costly. If you cannot manage those expenses well, you are in trouble. Story 108. Do you get bent out of shape for no reason if your partner talks to someone of the opposite sex, or even at the thought of it? If so, you are not ready or mature enough for a relationship. I am not sure what the equivalent is for gay or bisexual people. Story 109. If they frequently refer to their significant other as that clown, it may indicate disrespect. Story 110. Chemical dependencies. My ex had a severe kratom addiction. Story 111. They become upset whenever their partner expresses emotions. Story 112. When they just want to be loved but don't know how to love back. Story 113. They haven't been single 5 minutes. It killed me at school seeing people hop into another relationship within 2 months of ending a 3-month official relationship. You were just crying over someone else a week ago. What do you mean you're already in love? Story 114. People who cannot take accountability and need to control everything but call it being a perfectionist are not ready for a relationship. Story 115. As they call it these days, baggage. But that can come in many ways. The way things really work is to be honest with each other and follow the 3 Cs of life. Choices, chances, changes. You must make a choice to take a chance, or your life will never change. Story 116. They expect you to date them and make them happy because their ex left and moved on quickly. Oddly specific, I know. Story 117. They relate everything in your story through the lens of their former partners. Story 118. If someone lets other aspects of their life affect your relationship negatively, do not take out your anger at an outside situation on your partner. Story 119. For long-term relationships, people often judge a partner by their good qualities and tolerate the bad ones. Even if someone has many good qualities, a few bad habits can become unbearable over time. It is like a new shoe. When you try it on, minor problems do not seem so bad after walking back and forth a few times, but wearing it every day becomes intolerable. So it is okay to be more selective when you want a future with someone. Story 120. If they cannot love themselves on their own, you should not end up relying on another person for everything. They may make it easier to feel that way about yourself, but if you do not like yourself, it is not someone else's responsibility to fix you or prove your worth. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.